So this session, as I said, is a overview of our community development and engagement program, which really seeks to incubate new activities from our community in alignment with our overall program goals as the Big Data Hub. And so this is our second session at this meeting, talking about several programs that we have supported both recently and in the past year or so. We have a mixture of those projects on the call here today. Most recently, Karl Schmitt from Trinity Christian College has partnered with us on a data science for good faculty development and workshop model that we'll hear about in a moment. But we have a couple of other projects that have been up and running for over a year now. One is our Midwest Carpentries community, led out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison by Sarah Stevens. And that is a way for us to help build capacity of data science hands-on instruction across the region. We'll hear more about those activities in a bit as well. And we have Raghu Machiraju from Ohio State University, who's one of the co-leads of our Midwest computational,
pathology.
Yeah, the pathology computational group, sorry. It's been a long day here. Thank you for joining as well. They had a very successful workshop at the beginning of 2021 that really catalyzed their community. And so we can hear more details about that and their next steps on this call as well. So thank you all for joining. I think we'll go in the order that I just introduced folks. So Karl, are you ready to take over and tell us about your plans for the next year?
Absolutely. They're not terribly complicated slides, but that's okay. So thank you to the Midwest Hub and John and the group that did the community grants. I'm Karl Schmitt. I am currently at Trinity Christian College, which is out near Midway in Chicago. And the Midwest Hub, through one of the community development grants, has sponsored a project that I've titled Data for Social Good in Education, a workshop and conference. And I want to emphasize that this is sort of intended to be an extension on the ideas of data for social good and sort of put it in some context. And so towards that, we've got, the plan is basically to hold a workshop / conference that will involve primarily faculty, but also hopefully students and community members of various businesses, et cetera, sometime next fall, probably. And towards the end, I've already started collecting our organizing committee. So our organizing committee so far consists of myself, a colleague from here at Trinity who does social entrepreneurship teaching and things like that and research. So he is actually not a data scientist whatsoever. And so this is kind of exciting. Given the conversations we just had, I thought that I'd already been thinking about bringing in someone else that had some outside expertise, but that was related to doing social good and engaging that in the classroom. And then two other faculty from some other universities around the area and in the greater data science community, Dr. Monica Brown and Dr. Ranat, no, I'm just going to call her RN Uma, who is at North Carolina Central University. We would like to get probably 2 or 3 more people. I've got some names out that are hopefully connected to the data science for the data for social good community in Chicago. If you have other recommendations or any of you are interested in participating as an organizer, let me know, please. I want to sort of share the big objectives and sort of why I think this is an important workshop and to target. The idea that we proposed was that what we're looking to do is help train faculty, help improve faculty teaching on bringing data for social good into their classroom practices. That is, I am a strong believer that not just data for social good or data for good in general shouldn't just be something that's run by clubs or done via grants or things like that, but that we have a vast resource at all of our schools that are teaching data science to get the students engaged in producing social good as part of their classroom time and their work. And so I think that that's a really valuable thing that we could be doing in all of our classrooms with all of our time. but I think that it's not a skill set that everyone has. And I think it requires some real thought and care about how to support that well for students, how to support that well so that faculty feel successful about it, and how to support that well so that the outcomes that come out of those kinds of engagements are productive for the organization that's doing the partnering with schools or classrooms and stuff. And so the goal with this workshop is to provide tangible opportunities for faculty to come, learn, think about what they're doing in their classroom, and hopefully improve it and change it so that down the road, there'll be more social good outcomes. Ideally, we're hoping to have this workshop this be the first of a series of workshops along these lines, maybe every year kind of thing. The general organizational scope is probably going to be on the order of sort of the regional disciplinary conferences. So if you've ever attended one of the MAA or AMS meetings or any of the like local SIGC meetings, that kind of a scope of a conference, but with a real emphasis on data science for good in educational practices. In terms of getting engaged, a couple of spaces that we've got. I want to say that the tentative date that we're looking and aiming towards is probably late August next year. That is definitely not set in stone, but we're looking for sometime in that fall time period, likely right before or very early in the semester. We do hope to have a data-thon for the students connected to the event where it's an opportunity for students to spend time in some social good organization's data and actually produce something that is moving their goals and project along. I've shared the sort of big picture idea of what I'm hoping to accomplish and see happen in this workshop, but we don't have particular people or workshop plans. So if you struck and like you were like, man, that sounds like a crazy good idea and I want to participate, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you run a workshop session or get some suggestions for keynote speakers, etc. We'll be sort of reaching out among the networks for suggestions like that and among our organizing committee for those sessions. And as I said before, we would be happy to have additional people on that organizing committee. If you're really passionate and want to help define what this space looks like and what this community looks like as we build it, we'd love to have you. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's what I've got to share.
Great. Thank you very much, Karl. We're very looking forward to having that event kick off and be a focal point for the community, a way to bring together the folks who are more focused on instruction rather than research and have that be a home for them. So thanks very much for leading that. We're going to shift next to Sarah Stevens, but we will have time for questions for all of the presenters today at the end. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Hi, Sarah Stevens, pronoun she, her, hers, and I'm a facilitator for a different hub, the Data Science Hub at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And we've been working on the Midwest Carpentries community together. One of the things we like a lot in the Carpentries is evidence-based teaching practices and interactivity. And so bring those two things together, let's do a quick assessment of the room here. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little button that says reactions. So if you've ever heard of the Carpentries software or data carpentry, give me a thumbs up in those reactions. Let's take a look at the folks in the room. Couple people. All right. Keep your thumbs up or give me another thumbs up if you've ever taught at a workshop or helped out with a Carpentries workshop. I'm just curious. Okay, some of those in the room as well. Okay, let's talk about what the Carpentries is. And so it's a different type of carpentry, not necessarily making wood furniture, but instead we are talking about the best practices for research software engineering and giving researchers the skills they need to tackle large data and computing challenges. And this is through workshops. And the Carpentries itself is actually an international organization of community of volunteers. So there's volunteers all over the world that teach these workshops. There's usually at least one going on across the world at any time. And the researchers are for and by other researchers. So it's people who are doing the research who are creating these lessons and teaching these workshops. And so in the workshops, we develop lessons that are developed in the open so everyone can reuse them. It's also what I really like about them is it makes them a little bit more robust. So I know that a bunch of other Carpentries instructors have taught my lesson, and we're developing new lessons and continuing that same model all the time. We also train instructors, so we talk about that same evidence-based teaching practices, and we talk about how to teach with live coding, so it's very interactive, and we develop all of our workshops using reverse instructional design and organizing workshops. So organizing these typically 2-day workshops online, we've kind of played with the format a little bit more. And the workshops are around data management, software development best practices. We teach specific tools like the Unix shell, Python, R, OpenRefine, Git, all sorts of different things. And we're always developing new lessons. But the real principles that we try and emphasize are reproducible research and how to make your research more organized and reproducible. So again, I was saying that the Carpentries is we build our building, I guess, on the research-based pedagogy. And so we do a lot of work that's hands-on. So we want the learners to be typing along with the instructor, peer-led. So it's other researchers who are usually teaching these workshops. We have a lot of interactive exercises. As such, because of all the live coding and hands-on things, we have a lot of helpers in the room. And we really believe in co-teaching together. And so there's a lot of people there who can sneak up and find your typo because it's impossible to find your own typo. And at the same time, we as instructors can get real-time feedback. We like to use sticky notes to collect feedback on how things are going and check in with learners and see if everything's going well. Put a green sticky note on top of your laptop and we know it's okay. And when you run into a problem, put that orange sticky note on your laptop. That way they can continue to type while they try and solve their problem while they wait for somebody to come help. And this is all built on a foundation of inclusive principles. We have a code of conduct to make sure everyone is comfortable interacting with our community and learning in our workshops as well. And so as a part of that, the specific thing I'm here to talk about today is the Midwest Carpentries community. And so a lot of institutions in the Midwest have run these Carpentries workshops. And the goal is to bring all of those organizations together around hosting and teaching these Carpentries workshops or using them in courses as well as another option. And what the community is coming together is to help each other with how to organize these workshops. What are the best practices? When we moved online, we talked about, how do we teach these workshops online? What are best practices for teaching these online? What can we learn from one another? And finding volunteer instructors, so continuing to build our instructor community, also branching out to new institutions who are interested in the same, like filling the gap of computational needs. A lot of times the traditional curricula are a little slow to adopt some of these new practices. And so this kind of fills the gap for researchers who may be learning this stuff on their own and need some support. And so these workshops are there for them. And so across the Carpentries community, we can share experience and advice, what works well, what doesn't work well, what we've learned. And share instructor training and workshops so we can train instructors across institutions and continue to have some reciprocal options for having people attend workshops at other institutions, perhaps virtually, perhaps in person, depending on how close the institutions are easy to get to, I suppose. And we're working on putting together a mentorship program so that new instructors and hosts can connect with mentors. There's also a lot of activity going on around lesson development in the broader Carpentries community. And so supporting each other as we start to develop lessons is also going to be part of that mentoring program as well. Right now we have a monthly community call. It is the last Monday of the month at 11 Central, and I'll put a link to the ongoing note document that has connection information and other notes from our previous meetings in the chat in a moment. So let me know if you have any questions about the Carpentries community. I'm happy to answer any of them, and I'll wrap that up there.
Thank you very much. And third today, we have Raghu. Thank you very much for being here today.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our experience in creating a community in computational pathology. Okay. So this is DK. Yeah. So he's also a colleague of mine in the same department, computer science and engineering. And by the way, I should probably say, kind of state the title again. It's the title of this presentation is Building a Community of Practice in Computational Pathology. So I have appointments in pathology and biomedical informatics, in addition to having, an appointment in computer science. So for me, this is like, pretty much a dream come true, where I bring, my different sides of my psyche into one program or one set of directions. So DK has been a good partner for many, many years. So what we did was, like, along with somebody else whom I'm going to describe in a second. So we applied, and we were essentially awarded some resources to create a Midwestern Consortium for Computational Pathology. We call it MCCP. Okay, so it's certainly established through the hub, big data hub, and we thank the hub very much for it. So the idea is to foster a community of practice around computational pathology in the Midwest. There is a big scarcity of well-trained pathologists in the United States and pretty much everywhere. Okay, and it does have a very negative patient care. Okay, it impacts patient care pretty negatively. So, and there's a big change, in the practice of pathology, especially with the use of more and more digital technology. So there is an enormous opportunity for computational types to engage with, pathologists, especially on the use of machine learning, human-machine teaming, and so on and so forth. So the goal of this consortium is to bring together experts from pathology, data science, and computer science, okay, and academia, government, laboratories, and industry. So it's also to, the goal is also to position the Midwest at the cutting edge of this age of digital pathology. So on the left, you see, essentially, the research trusts laid out here, big data management, digital pathology, high performance computing, machine learning and AI, human machine teaming. So these are the outcomes we seek. Pathology outcomes, they could be pretty varied. That's why you see a question mark there. Advanced, digital pathology workflows, enhanced machine learning models, data repositories, data management tools, and many stakeholders, right? I just described some of them already. And by the way, there's a link to the website, and we'll be happy to share the slides too. So we are essentially leveraging a real pathologist, Anil Parwani. He's at Ohio State. So he's been collecting a huge repository of on digital slides. Okay, basically all these slides on glass slides. Okay, so he takes a glass slide, scans them, right? So you're talking about at least 1 million slides. Okay, so these are all retrospective. It's like a treasure trove, right? So that's what he's been doing. He was recruited from University of Pittsburgh, and one of his agenda was to build, pretty much one of his agendas was to build this archive. Now, for the consortium, we had quite a bit of interest, and there was, as you can see, quite a few joined the consortium, and they participated in the proceedings of the workshop. So we planned for 3 workshops. So we completed one earlier this year, and there are plans to do the other 2 very soon. And we got a little delayed, and I'll explain why. There's a good reason why we're delayed, and I'll explain. So the first workshop was to bring everybody together, right? And the basic idea was to identify gaps in the state of the art of computational pathology, okay, and the workflows there. Okay, that was the main. It's almost like gap finding. Okay, so what do we need to do? So workshop 2 is really, is to seek solutions which will bridge the gap, right? So how do you create new tools and so that we can create more optimized workflows and bridge the gap. The third workshop will identify future directions. Right? So the goal is to also develop these tools into future products with industry partners. I mean, these are pretty much, they take a lot of time, but at least we would like to start the conversation. And also, very importantly, to train the next generation of digital pathologists. They need quite a bit of help from us, and we need to, we need to really work with them so that we understand the problems at hand, right? So the first workshop was all about building convergence, right? So we had many breakout groups to identify gaps in the workflows, data sets, and tools. And we discussed some plans, how to conduct outreach in both academia and industry, and also to identify, interdisciplinary research trusts. And these were some of the areas of discussion: digital pathology and imaging, machine learning, AI, human-machine teaming, big data management, high-performance computing, outreach, and industry connections. I did mention this before. I'm repeating so that you can see that you can essentially gauge the breadth of the consortium. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but you can see that we had a collection of keynote talks, and then many lightning talks, and also some I guess more somewhat detailed talks. Okay. So, which got into a very specific kind of technology or methodology. And we had folks from pretty much many universities in the Midwest. Yeah. So that was day one. This is day two. Right? And then we had a day three also. So we had 3 keynote talks, okay, for each particular day. And now the question is, what do we do, right? So we will, essentially hold workshop 2 early spring 2022. And workshop 3, late summer 2022. Okay. Now, one would ask, especially John should ask us, how come you guys are slow? Why are you kind of dragging your feet? The reason is that we essentially we were awarded an NSF AI Institute. Okay. That took every bit of oxygen in the room from us. Okay. So we ended up, standing up the institute. We're launching it on November 1st, okay? And we have, all the kickoff sessions in December. We have a retreat in December. And that's the reason why, everything came to a standstill. The last few months, all we did was, we've been planning to stand up the institute. But the institute has a room for including computational pathology or even including consortiums of this kind. Why? Because the goal of this institute is to essentially allow plug-and-play AI. That's the basic idea. Okay, so plug-and-play AI, does not exist. Okay, for many applications, many scenarios. Okay, plug-and-play exists. Okay, even on the power grid. Okay, the electricity grid, but it doesn't exist for for AI or software in general, right? There is software as service, but it's still not plug and play. And so to democratize AI, we certainly need new cyber infrastructure, and essentially that will require plug and play AI capabilities, intelligent cyber infrastructure, also use inspired research. We just do not want to create infrastructure that lives in vacuum, right? And very importantly, also to generate, to kind of foster the growth of next generation AI capable workforce, which is not very different than what we discussed, what I just mentioned for the consortium, right? So we, for now, since it was NSF, right, as you all know, so anything to do with health gets to be a little tricky. So we mostly focused on smart food sheds, animal ecology, and digital agriculture. We do plan to add digital pathology as a vertical, okay? And the goal is to kind of create a continuum of field to edge to cloud or HPC centers, and that whole connection. So wherever you are, you should be able to, to kind of use the AI models. We also would love to create large, complex, heterogeneous data, a plethora of scientific questions. And the goal is to allow, decision making in the field, especially where the bandwidth is low, but also kind of make sure the data is private. Although it's still collaborative intelligence can happen. And then, of course, the whole goal is to kind of, provisioning models to use and plan computation. So we do hope computational pathology will play a role. So we thank NSF, and of course we thank the Midwest Big Data Hub for supporting our consortium. And I would be happy to take any questions on this consortium, and also the AI Institute. That's all I have.
That's great. Thank you very much, Raghu. We have a longstanding partnership with Ohio State and the Data Science Institute there, and you guys have got some tremendous awards this year in AI institutes and HDR and other places that we see some really good places for synergy with the Big Data Hub. All right, so thank you all for those presentations. We can open it up to questions from the audience. We have a very small audience at the moment here, but I do see our PI, Kathy Blake, is on the call. And we have Ann Russell, who actually is one of our other collaborators on different projects as well. And I see Kimberly Zarkor has come back as well. So welcome to you all. Happy to have any questions from you for the presenters here. I have some as well. Maybe I'll get us started with one or two. One thing that sticks out to me for these projects and others that we have supported is the need to bring together a large community to make some headway on a particular project, and whether that's pathology or data science instruction. There's a need to bring together people across boundaries at a campus or in a discipline. And so I'm wondering if any of the three of you or other audience members want to talk about the process of building that community. What was successful for you, Raghu, in bringing together folks from academia and in different disciplines? You had a lot of industry participation in that first workshop.
Yeah.
We set that up as the Midwest pathology group, but we had a tremendous amount of international participation in that workshop. What do you think was one of the drivers to help you bring together that diverse set of folks?
So, as always, right, it depends on the people, right? So, I think having a pretty well-known figure in pathology like Anil Parwani as, one of the principals really helped, because he, everybody knows him. Everybody knows about the archivist building, and everybody would love to have love to have access to that archive, right? So I think that helps. And DK Panda is also very well known in the HPC community. That helps a lot, right? So so we have folks who are well known, and that certainly played a role in attracting a lot of interest. And the speakers too, right? We were able to quickly we were able to attract quite a few speakers who are well known in some communities. And I think that certainly all these reasons were I think played a role. Yeah. It's a short answer. I'm sure there are other reasons too, but that would be my kind of from the top of my head kind of answer.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it was, to me, looking at that from mostly as an outsider perspective, it was very interesting to see sustained participation over 3 very long days of talks, but also very interactive breakout sessions where people were brainstorming topics. So we have taken that to heart this year for our Midwest Hub meetings and having more engaging activities like that, because it seemed to work very well for that group. Sarah, how about you? Can you speak at all to the sort of international level Carpentries engagement? A lot of that seems to be more asynchronous, offline kinds of work, but what brings that community together? What's sort of the driving force that makes that cohesive?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things with the Carpentries is that we value inclusivity so much, and we value our code of conduct and making sure everyone feels welcome and included in the community as well. And I always consider it to always keep trying to include more people is like one of my, I think it's an ongoing process of keeping to include more people. I know the Carpentries is looking to expand regionally, so they have some like regions that they're looking to try and expand and have more workshops in and support better. And along with it, I think at the same time, we're always like trying to make people feel welcome, know that they can come and ask questions, get help, feel supported. Like, it's really important to me that any instructors or hosts or new people who are coming to what is the Carpentries, how can this be useful for me, have people they can talk to and feel supported. Like, I don't quite get what this is. Come ask me a question. And so that's one of my constant things with recruiting new people, is trying to make sure that they feel welcome and that they get all their questions answered.
That's great. Thank you. So, another thing that I think we're trying to do with these projects, they are all very distinct and standalone kinds of activities, but we are interested in looking for connections across them and where folks can collaborate. And so I was happy to see in Karl's slides, for example, one of our other partners, Monica Brown from St. Catherine University, who's doing some similar data science education development. She's already on your program committee, so you guys are part of that together, and you I think met in the Big Data Hub's working group on data science education. So I think making those kinds of professional connections is terrific. But if we can think about the next pathology workshop, maybe there's an opportunity to have a Carpentries training associated with that, or maybe at Karl's workshop next year we could have a Carpentries session or something, right? Are there ways that we can look across these projects and bring folks together that way as well?
I would love to have Sarah come and do stuff or someone from the Carpentries come and do stuff at the workshop, because I think that I think it'll just be a matter of making sure that we're picking topics that merge well into things that can also be included in the classroom, in addition to training students or training faculty into skills for their own research. Because I think a lot of those are like, there's a lot of that data management stuff that you sort of need to know to be able to help your students know how to do it well in the process. And as when I heard Sarah talking about the stuff, I was like, yes, Sarah wants to just get on my organizing committee. I'm not going to turn her down.
And there's more connections than you think already. Uma took instructor training with me probably in the last year, I think. I recognized her name. I was like, oh, I know her.
Yeah, I recognize you. Like, once I saw you talking, I was like, I know Sarah does. So, but I think that certainly the data Carpentries is right in line with the kinds of stuff that I'd love to see happen at that workshop and training. I think the real key is just making sure that we're either thinking about smaller chunks than like a 2 or 3 day workshop for the Carpentries, and making sure that we're targeting the right kinds of skills to give faculty what they need to do better in a classroom, right? And I'm not saying that there's piles of it that overlap. It's just a matter of thinking carefully about where those come.
Yeah, I really love to see, I've had a few faculty members join for instructor training. I've done a lot of instructor training in the last couple of years. And so many of them are like, we've taught for a long time, but rarely ever had any education in how to teach. And so they're very often really excited about it. And they have these experiences in the classroom, which I think are really valuable for when you're learning these skills, right? Because you have something to see like, oh, that's why that didn't work the way I expected it to. Or this could be better because I could change this in my class and it might work a little bit better. And so they have that experience to build upon.
That's true. I guess, yeah. So you have separate instructor training stuff too.
Yeah, the Carpentries trains instructors every year. Usually a lot of those seats are as part of a membership with the Carpentries, but you can also get into open training anytime. And so we do a lot of instructor training as well. So teaching people how to teach the tech workshops.
Well, that might be, in some sense, that's exactly what that's what I want to have us be teaching at or doing for faculty development at the workshop, but I'm trying to organize, right? Like I want to be doing that instructor training. So maybe getting a better sense of what you put into the instructor training would help us frame.
I'm going to give you a link because like all things Carpentries, it's open and on the web and you can find it there. So let me grab the link and I'll throw it in chat.
Okay,
perfect.
Great.
Let's continue that conversation because the Hub does have a high-level membership with the Carpentries, and so we have access to those training seats, and we'll develop a process to allocate those. But that kind of model of train the trainer is one thing we're trying to do, and so bringing that into the pathology space or bringing it into the data for good space is definitely an option there.
Yeah. And honest, one of the questions that I don't have a good answer for, and some of what might come out of this first workshop from my perspective is this question of, is it that we really need to be training for social good things? Or is it just that the people that are interested in incorporating data for social good into their classrooms simply just need training about how to talk about data stuff, right? Like I think about Craig Manderson, who he's probably got way more social good knowledge in the classroom for how to teach that stuff than I do. He just doesn't have any data knowledge because that's not his area of expertise. And so he would benefit a ton from taking like one of these data work competencies. And it's hard to know where faculty are coming from, whether they're, excited because they're coming from non-technical field and they want the technical skills to do data for good, or whether they're coming from technical skills and want to know how to make sure they're actually producing product that is useful to the people that are doing social good, right?
Right. Yeah, that sort of gets at one of my follow-ons here around those intersections. So you were talking about skill development, but there's also the piece in terms of curriculum and instruction about having relevant data and examples for courses. And so in the Carpentries world, we're thinking about ways to build in examples from the disciplines that the hub is focused on. We have another project that presented yesterday through the University of Michigan called the Learning Innovation Fellows Program. Ann Russell on the call here is familiar with that as well, where they're building in those kinds of examples into the sustainability and environment curriculum for faculty to benefit from and students as well. So thinking about those two dimensions of skills and data science experience, but also the relevant examples and content, I think is important here. And, that could be pathology, that could be other disciplines as well.
So I do want to
add to that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I when at TDAI, right? So I was the interim director for quite a few years. Mm-hmm. So we had data carpentries come and actually, conduct classes. It was great, So I didn't think of it, but maybe I should have thought of it, and I apologize. But for this group too, the computational pathologists, I think it'll be great. Most of them, have probably never seen a programming language in their lives. So, medical school is a very different beast, as you all know. I think that'll be great. So how about we reach out to you, Sarah? When time comes, for us to plan the second. Consortium, second workshop. So not the second consortium, I'm sure, but second workshop. That'll be wonderful. So I will reach out to you definitely, and I think we certainly can have you folks help some of the pathologists at least get on board. That'll be great. Yeah. I'll follow. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. I see that Sarah has put a link in the chat, a very relevant one as well.
Yeah, it's an incubator lesson. It's somewhat experimental, and I don't know how well maintained it is, but it might be an interesting starting point. We were thinking about running that earlier this year, but things didn't work out with it. But it is something that is a data science aimed at practicing clinicians, so it might be an interesting place to start with. There's always customization, though, as John mentioned. We've done a lot of customization. We took the ecology lesson and we made our own health sciences version that uses observations of patients with dementia, over a long period of time. And so we kind of swapped out the data set there to use a different one. And it took us a little bit of time to do it, but we've run it 3 times now. So it's actually a pretty established workshop for us. And so it can be really easy to swap out the examples with something more relevant to your field if that.
Sure. I do teach a class in our master's program for translational data analytics. And, so this is the very first class using Python, right? So we have a similar one in R, okay? And we essentially welcome everybody, right? From all walks of undergraduate training, okay? All the way from marketing to underwater basket weaving, right? Anybody can come, right? So, but I'm telling you, you have to change the way you present material. It's very different. And this is the second time I'm teaching. It's been quite an experience, but they know what they're doing, right? It's just they're highly competent people. It's just that you cannot treat them as typical computer science students that we're all used to. So it's been a big, eye opener for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, John, when you made this comment about having good example data, because there's a trade-off there. And this is sort of where I'm hoping, part of what I want to have, if we have a series of the kind of workshops that I'm looking to run, guidance in practicing faculty to get better with stuff, because in some sense, exactly what you just talked about is exactly what I don't want any of those faculty to actually end up doing in their classroom, right? Because one of my teaching ideas and thoughts is that if I could get into students' hands data that needs to be cleaned, I could teach them to be cleaning the data on data that needs to be cleaned for this social organization that can't pay for a data scientist to clean their data. The problem, of course, is that you're working with real data, so you don't know what you're getting. You have to manage that whole process in order for it to be productive and useful for either side of it. And that's not, it's a challenging skill set, and it's a dream, right? Like, I think about the fact that how many hours are we supposed to make our students do homework for? Every semester, right? Every semester for a 3-credit class, students are supposed to do something like 80 hours of work outside of class for a 3-credit class, okay? To hit accreditation, which means that if you have a class of 20, you have a 1,600 student hours to spend on things. You spend even 25% of those student hours on improving someone's data. That's 400 hours of work that we can be contributing to social good every time we teach a class, which is a lot of time, but we have to get the skill sets placed, right? And it's not like it's a trivial concept to be able to manage that process somehow. But when I think about where we have space for us as communities and educators and facilitators in the data world to help people do more and be better, like, that's our biggest resource, right? Like, not like extra research projects or other things like that. Like, getting them to do spending some time of their homework doing things means there's like crazy amounts of hours that we can have spending on improving the world. Anyway, that's it.
Very interesting. We have just a couple minutes left here. I wanted to open it up to other audience member questions at this point as well. All right. Well, we can continue.
I was going to say.
Go ahead, Aaron. Yeah.
Oh, it's not really a question. It's more of a comment. Back, it was a year and a half ago. Now I can't remember when it was. I think it was 2019. So a decade ago because of COVID. But we held a data carpentry course at Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota, and all those attended really felt. I got the feedback that most of the people who attended really felt like it was a worthwhile activity, and they really want to do a second one, which is why we included having a data carpentries presenter just come in and do an overall presentation on the Carpentries organization at the digital ag workshop that we're going to do, community development workshop we're going to do either next spring or next summer. So I guess the value of it is something I just wanted to comment on. I think it's something that's really good at introducing people with absolutely no experience in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. We had great feedback from that workshop, and I think that same year we ran a couple in Ohio as well with different partners, and so part of that is understanding your audience and what their needs are. And so the folks on the reservation had some very interesting needs that, are not the same as grad students in biology or folks who are trying to skill up for a particular career. And so I think that having that flexibility that the Carpentries has is really helpful for addressing those different audience needs. All right, we are going to have to wrap this up here in order to get ready for our next session. This will be our last session of the meeting, and we encourage you all to participate in that if you would like. It's basically going to be an overview of where we are with the Hub program at this point, and as we're getting close to the end of our initial NSF support, what some of the next direction might be for sustainability and further activities. So you're welcome to join that community conversation that begins at the top of the hour. But we really appreciate you all taking the time to join this session today and for the presenters to talk about their projects. Really looking forward to continuing to work with you all on those activities. All right. Thank you all very much.